you present yourself in the same way every time and make sure that people know that they can respect and trust what you're delivering to them. And at that point, you notice the difference because you start to get calls inward versus you making outward requests, right? They start coming inward and say, do you mind if I bring a camera to your next event? Do you mind if I come to study hall or to our CHOP program where the boys cook?
Yeah.
Do you mind if I send somebody over? Do you mind if we write up a story? Do you mind if and I start to know editors, writers on first name basis because there's a trust and a respect.
Because you've been reaching out to them.
Exactly. And you have sort of a reputation that precedes you in a great way.
Hi, I'm Josh Owen. As the owner of a video marketing company in New Orleans, I've been on the quest to learn everything I can about marketing. Everyone has a different style, different strategy, and a different experience. Is there a wrong way to do it? A right way to do it? Let's find out together as we make marketing make sense. Welcome back, everybody, to another fantastic episode of Make Marketing Make Sense. I'm here with the illustrious Elliot Hutchinson from Son of a Saint. How's it going, man?
It's good. It's a good week. It's a good time to connect with you again.
Yeah. I mean, I can't complain. I don't think we see each other enough.
Exactly. And we see each other a lot, but there's more. There could always be more.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, today we're here to talk about something specific. It's PR for your nonprofit partnerships. Now, I think you know a little bit about that.
Yeah.
PR background.
Yes.
Working in a nonprofit for a good time now. Volunteering for a while as well. I guess, it's no secret that Son of a Saint is a very powerful force in New Orleans, at least as a nonprofit.
It's
and
great
people
to hear
look
that.
at it and see it. It's like up in the skylights,
I love the sound of that.
Yeah, I'm going to hype it up more. No. But it wasn't always that way. And especially, them investing in you as a PR, specialist and then becoming a full-time staff member, that increased time and time again. And so a lot of people want to know, what was the secret? What was what did you do? What did you do? And I guess the best way to start is what was the first big PR, boom that really took you guys off?
Yeah. So I'll say in my experience, Son of a Saint started in 2011. I came on board as a volunteer really around the 2013, 2014 time span. And there were moments where Son of a Saint had great sort of following, great reach. The mission is kind of undeniable. It's universal. Who doesn't want to see the best of our community, the best of our future, the best of New Orleans, and to help a young man who's growing up in these circumstances, without a father, but has all the other potential and all the other opportunities in the world. So when I came on, I was working at another PR firm full time. And so I had sort of that acumen behind me. I was probably, at least a decade-ish into my career at that point, working all through undergrad at a PR firm and then coming out to a full-time space. But I leaned in terms of what is sort of what is the void? What can I fill? Where can I kind of chime in and kind of be another tool in their arsenal? Because, you can do tons and tons of great work, but if you're not able to tell that story, push that forward, no one's really going to see it. No one's going to understand. It's an investment of time and of energy and of ideas. But anyway, when I found out that there was the opportunity to help with PR, the first thing that I really, really leaned in on, I did a couple of light things, light press releases here and there, a couple of moments, but it was really the 2015 annual gala. For Son of a Saint, which if you know about Son of a Saint, that is our biggest premier signature event of the year. It is really a windfall for setting us up for success year over year and getting one year closed out really strongly and starting the new one really strongly. And it's also people's first point of contact with the organization. So it's a really good cross-section of donors, volunteers, community partners, moms, the guardians of the mentees. The mentees themselves are there. Everybody's dressed up, celebrating hopefully what has always been a successful year and a way for us to grow it. So that was the first one that I did. And it was about getting the word out in a really effective way. The annual gala continues to grow every single year, but at that point it was at a sort of a turning point where it could really be elevated to a new space. And I was still a volunteer technically at that time, but I came in, kind of put my events management hat on, put my event promo hat on, press release, public relations, storytelling hat on, and I think that was one of their best, or the ones that kind of turned the tide and kind of brought us into this sort of evolutionary gala phase. That's my first. Can also give you my biggest and best.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that was the first.
That was the first.
That was a good little event. But now the biggest and
we
best.
went somewhere else. Okay, so. It's interesting. Son of a Saint turned 13 years old in 2024.
Oh, wow.
They say it takes, 10 to 15 years for an overnight success. Some people might still think that Son of a Saint is somewhat of an overnight success, but there's been a lot of years that culminated in what people see now, which is the point, right? That's the point of putting in good work and the investment, the ROI of the investment. So the 2020 calamity that it was actually our turning point. That was actually what set us into like a new stratosphere, because I think at that point, because you talk about things like the COVID response and resources needed, you talk about the conversation on racial reckoning, Black Lives Matter, the George Floyd case, that let people know, wow, this is exactly why we need a Son of a Saint. And people reached in more than ever. I think it was also the sort of the mix of the perfect storm of the gumbo of people also being kind of hunkered down in one place. And they could see a lot of our messaging in a pipeline, which is where I kind of like stepped in and was like, okay, now's the time to really like let people know and keep the channel flowing, because they are respectfully a captive audience. Like here's what, and it really did turn the tide. So around that time, two things happened. One was that Auctioneer Health became one of our largest partners, and they invested $1.25 million in Son of a Saint to not only create our newly renovated, re-envisioned 16,000-foot headquarters, which has been a game changer, but they also embedded mental health specialists and case managers. And so my job was to work with the Auctioneer team and really tell that story. And that was just a good old-fashioned, like, here's a media blitz, here's a big rollout, here's this huge announcement. In this time that you would think was unprecedented for the wrong reasons, this was unprecedented for good reasons for us. So that was a big one. And then my best, I will say, that was the biggest. And the best, I would say, maybe also the biggest, is we got Sunny on the Today Show. In April 2022 with Hoda and Jenna, which was awesome. And the producer of that story actually is a New Orleans native and a New Orleans high school grad, and then she moved up into the world of big TV. So she had her own heartstrings pulled about why Son of a Saint meant so much to her, and kind of like pushed us through the process. And Sonny so happened to be in New York at the time, so we got him in the studio, in the chair, meeting Hoda Kotb, meeting Jenna Bush, and it was really cool.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's so much to talk about there. I mean, you got a best, you got a brightest, you got a, the newest, the first, the last, you got a moment for every, it just goes to show how invested you are with Son of a Saint. But a lot of that, I mean, obviously the biggest questions are, for me are, one, how do you go about landing all these different, successes, deals, when it comes to a nonprofit? I think a lot of people want to know, like, first of all, how do you get people at a gala? A lot of people, like, I know a lot of nonprofits, some of them are like, oh, we're cutting our gala because it's like, it's too much work, and so, what's the ROI on things like this? How do you build around a gala? All these different things, starting with that, what is your whole, thoughts on that?
Yeah. So I've always said this, going back to even when I graduated from LSU with a degree in mass comm and concentration in public relations. So this is like literally what I do. I did an aptitude test in high school about what's your career aptitude, and they were like marketing, and I drove down.
And then you knew ever since.
I've literally never left. I like stayed with it, kept swimming. But anyway, I always say that PR does not stand for press release. It literally stands for public relations. And the second word is the operative word. It's about relationships. The reason why I'm able to have so many different spaces and places and faces that I kind of always run back to. Sometimes it's about asking for favors. Sometimes it's about doing something that is going to have mutual benefit. Sometimes it's about doing some hardline business. It's about relationship management. It really, really is. Like, of course, professional skills are transferable. You can be a good communicator. You can be good at time management. You can be organized. But can you also sustain relationships and make people feel valued and also make sure that you are valued? That's been the case with a lot of like successful public relations campaigns and opportunities and firms and professionals that I've seen, is that's that extra niche that they have to step into.
That's interesting.
So that's helped a lot. So when we talk about things like the gala, or we talk about things like I mentioned about the producer who had a relationship back to New Orleans, and there was commonality in that. The gala, as an example as well, there's a lot of in-kind partnerships, in-kind donations. Volunteerism is really important. The other thing I would say, if somebody does want to make a critical investment for their nonprofit or other business, and they want to make sure that they have success, it can't be a resume builder. You have to actually love this. I say all the time, I was able to marry my passion and my profession, and that's not always the norm. I mean, I think you have to look up on that. I feel lucky to do that. But I don't look at Son of a Saint. I don't look at any of the things that I've done in my career as that was another checkbox or another mile marker on the resume, because if you do that, it's going to feel like robotic work versus what I do feels like this is a journey. This is a career. I'm telling a story as I tell stories every day, right? I'm telling my own story. And somebody's got to be invested enough that when I put my name on a press release, a gala, a video shoot, it's a reflection of the work I'm doing, a reflection of who I am. So you've got to be that invested in yourself and also have a point of pride in whatever work you're working for on a professional basis, the entity, the organization, the nonprofit, the community.
Yeah. I mean, especially when you're talking about journeys, you know, and relationships, you know, how, I guess one of the things I'm always curious about, especially, you know, with galas and stuff like that, how do you build those relationships? How do you build those journeys, especially when it comes to people you don't know, and especially when it comes to knowing whether or not how much I need to invest in someone, you know, because I mean, sure, you want to spend all your time on like these big people or small people, but how do you know, how to do that, when to do that, you know, the right, you know, way to build a relationship? Like how do you do that for a nonprofit?
Yeah, you know, it's a matter for me. It's a matter of sustaining who you are, what your brand means, what your story is in the quiet moments. It's not always going to be about the large wins. What I've learned is that, what I've seen is that because Son of a Saint does a great job of sustaining the brand reputation, the mission, putting the success stories forward, even in the quietest moments. If it's a tweet, do we say tweet or is it X? I don't know how you're saying that. We'll still say tweet.
If it's a tweet, tweet out at X.
Tweet out at X. They need to figure that out. Anyway, if it's an Instagram post, if it is just word of mouth, meeting somebody out and about, shaking hands. For us, our merchandise, our gear that we wear as a team, it's got our logo on the front, it's got our tagline on the back, it's got our social handles. It's about making sure that people feel connected even in sort of the lulls. There really are no lulls, but it might feel like a lull versus we might throw a golf tournament, we might throw a gala, we might throw an out-of-town fundraiser. But in those sustained moments, do they feel like they are seeing you? And because our mission does that, and our mission is so undeniable, and we've tied our mission to the betterment of all of our community, I think that helps a lot. So I can go and I can call a AV production company for the gala, or an entertainer, or an auctioneer, or an MC, or a host, or a decor company, and they'll say, oh yeah, I've seen the work you guys have been doing. You guys do a great job, and it's always the same thing. You guys do a great job with keeping your message out there, with telling your story, with making sure we see the boys and seeing those success stories. So that way, I don't necessarily have to do a hard ask or do the beg. They see it. And again, if we can make the opportunity mutually beneficial, then it kind of works for them. I think another thing when you're just talking about, from me, not even talking about the gala, with PR, a lot of it is just media relations and talking to the press. Because I present Son of a Saint story in a way that is clean, professional, well articulated, and kind of can also center it, it helps a lot to be able to talk to a journalist, an editor, a writer, and you've kind of done a lot of the lion's share of the work for them. I say that respectfully, meaning that they appreciate that like, oh, this is a well-thought, correct. This is a well-thought concept, story, idea. I'm happy to do the interview with you. I'm happy to go ahead and publish this. So that's a lot of the battle. But that does take consistency. It takes being focused and sustained, and you have to get like-minded individuals to like make sure that they can come along that journey, come along the ride.
Interesting, because like I guess like how do you notice or do you recognize the efforts that you like? Because I think a lot of people probably miss that step about writing up their own stories to send in to other organizations and stuff like that. Do you feel like that? Do you see the impacts of that? From publishing stories and stuff like that. Was that one of the first things you wanted to tackle for Son of a Saint?
Yeah, so those are like the principles that I learned back when I was still an intern at the first PR firm I worked for back when I was at LSU in Baton Rouge, was that you have to make sure that when you step into the room, whether that's in person or digitally, we used to fax back then. That's how long ago that was.
Get those facts straight, man.
You got to get the facts right. The facts and the facts have to be right.
Yeah.
But it was about you present yourself in the same way every time and make sure that people know that they can respect and trust. The trust is really important.
Yeah.
That they can trust what you're delivering to them. And at that point, you notice the difference because you start to get calls inward versus you making outward requests, right? They start to come in and say, do you mind if I bring a camera to your next event? Do you mind if I come to study hall or to our CHOP program where the boys cook?
Yeah.
Do you mind if I send somebody over? Do you mind if we write up a story? Do you mind if I start to know editors, writers on first name basis because there's a trust and a respect.
Because you've been reaching out to them.
Exactly. And you have sort of a reputation that precedes you in a great way.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, well, I guess too, looking at other nonprofits, do you feel like they're missing? Like, what do you think they're missing? Like, I mean, there's so many, and like, you know, what's the thing that you think that they're like lacking a lot of times?
I think, with nonprofit life, I've done it too.
Yeah.
You end up, you come into the role as one thing and you end up wearing many hats. But don't forget what your favorite hat is. Don't forget what your best hat is. Put that hat back on. We always make a joke. This is in corporate America. This is in business regardless. But, there's that part of your job description that says, and other duties as assigned at the bottom in fine print. And it's like, that could be anything.
Who knows what it is?
Buckle
Hodgepodge,
up. Right. And oftentimes it is. And I think after the lockdown, people really became Swiss Army knives, right? Which can be great in one sense, but don't forget that, like, if you're a screwdriver, stay a screwdriver. If you are a knife, stay a knife. If you're a boat, be a boat. If you're a plane, be a plane. Wow. Don't forget, like, you can always transition and shift, and you can always. I think that I am like a boat plane.
You're a boat plane?
Can do a little.
Wow.
Hopefully, I don't know.
That's pretty legit. I want one of those. That's cool. You can just fly around,
and then dip on in the water and get back up there.
I think there are those.
There are those. Yeah. No, I've done the research.
But they're not really like a boat. But it's a plane that can land.
Correct.
It's not enough boat.
Exactly.
Need more boat. We need planes with more boat.
Exactly.
Okay. Gotcha.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I would say, like, get back to the vessel, the tool that you are. Like, don't forget that. So I think with other nonprofits who might be missing that is that if you're going to make the critical investment in somebody who is a creative, who is a marketer, who's a storyteller, who's a PR specialist, let them own that before they venture out into doing the next thing, which is like maybe they're not a born fundraiser.
Yeah.
Maybe they're not like a all heart in community organizer. Maybe their thing is to continue to do PR functions. Yeah. Let them do that. Let them sharpen their knife in that way.
Yeah.
And then see if they can venture out. But, like, do the investment and make sure that you maintain the original investment.
Because I guess, are you suggesting that, I think, like, that makes sense. Like, a lot of nonprofits just, like, hire someone and they say, like, I mean, I hear it all the time, is like, they just say, hey, you need to do this, this, and this. Do you think the thing is that a lot of them are just trying to do everything when, in fact, like, you only really need, like in Son of a Saint really only invested in you to do one thing originally.
Absolutely.
And so you did that one thing and you did it well. You got the name out there and that's what you focused on. You just focused on press releases. You weren't also like coming in, doing all this other stuff. And so, really giving, them that idea that, hey, stop focusing on all these things. Only focus on one thing and that's it.
And listen, I can understand what it's like from a PR standpoint of, what I'm doing and like how that's worked. I also understand what it's like to run a nonprofit, and sometimes resources are scarce and limited, and sometimes your biggest resource is just human capital and manpower. And like we say sometimes, like we need bodies. A lot of times that's what we say for like volunteerism. But at Son of a Saint, again, it's been 13 plus years at this point, but we built out a structure where there are functional areas. That wasn't overnight. That was a growth process, but now there is a director of development, which is all fundraising. There is a director of programming, which is what the boys and the curriculum and all that is. There is now a director of community engagement. Will Jones on our team.
Oh,
so
I know
he's
great,
all. Right?
Yeah.
So and so what he does, that's his thing. Maddie's lane as the development director is hers on. She's a whiz at fundraising, our programming, and what I'm doing as creative director is to really own that. Now, is there cross collaboration? Yes, that's inevitable. Yeah. But everybody respects the autonomy of what they are an expert in. Yeah. And I think that's what works.
Interesting.
And I know that again, if nonprofits are starting out, Swiss Army knife life is important, and you have to be. You've got to be multifunctional in some respects, but don't forget where to let people shine.
Yeah. I mean, I almost want to challenge and say, like, don't even worry about a Swiss Army. Just worry about, your one tool, nail it.
Yeah.
And then add on tools as you go along.
I like that strategy too. Yeah. I think Sonny would definitely lean into that too.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing is that sometimes with nonprofit professionals, especially if it's, a founder, executive director, they may want to do things a certain way, but I think what worked at Son of a Saint is that Sonny always says this. He's like, I'm down to hire somebody better than me at whatever that thing is. So he said before, he's like, I'm down to hire whoever that is because they might be better than me at that. And please go have at it. So then I can still be founder, CEO, what I'm good at.
Yeah. I mean, I want to walk away from this. I know I could talk about like the problems with nonprofits all day, but I want to walk away from this talking one last thing about, because giving advice on specifically, because you've written press releases all that like for a long part of your career, to other nonprofits or even businesses looking to do their own press releases and getting their stories out there. What would you say, is your, pieces of advice for them to make sure that they have a quality story that gets picked up?
Yeah, I think that they should look into partnership, collaboration. So everything from there's a professional organization. It's called the Public Relations Society of America. And there's a New Orleans chapter. PRSA, NOLA. I was president of PRSA NOLA. Yeah. They gave me the Ball of Fire Award and this other excellence award, meaning that I'm just always running.
You got a lot of fireballs.
I got a lot of fire. I'm like Mario.
Like, oh, wow. Okay. Nice.
Okay, old school reference.
You're shooting out. Yeah.
I do.
Hey, it's coming back. Yeah.
I do. Mario's back.
Yeah.
So I think that, like, leaning into people like that. There are also a lot of, as a nonprofit, there are a lot of firms, PR firms, creative agencies that have, and I know this as working in the industry, that have an allocation year over year to do what they call community-based, goodwill, philanthropic, charitable work. So they may be able to help take on any given campaign, take on you as a client within reason, and you can do that. Zender used to do it all the time. Wow. I know Spears Group has done it before. They've helped Son of a Saint a lot. And for that reason, that can be the difference in really feeling like you just have somebody else in your corner. Whoever your creative marketer, PR specialist is, can feel like they can glean some good tips. My career advice to everybody, even to myself every day in the mirror, is continue to be a sponge. Like I never stop learning in just life, the school of life, the school of day to day. So that's super helpful as well. And then also, there's nothing wrong with drawing inspiration from people who have done it well. I still do that. I look around and I'm like, I like the way that they told that story. How can I adapt and modify that to help with ours? How could I follow either, if it's approach, if it's writing style, if it's the actual content, if it's a certain sort of angle. You can always take, adapt, apply, modify, and make it your own. That would be my advice. And it's doable, right? It is doable. And, what do they say? The first part of a long journey is the first step. If it's 1,000 steps, take the first one. Otherwise, you'll never get to step 892.
That's right. Well, I mean, you heard it here first. Everybody go find Son of a Saint's press releases, read them, and copy them.
Yes, they are on our redesigned website. So just saying, they are there, and they do tell more of a longevity story. So
awesome.
Go read them.
Fantastic. Yeah. Well, that sounds like a great place to leave it. Thank you, Elliot, for coming on and sharing all that with me.
Yeah.
I mean, we always want to leave with this. If you want to share with everybody where they can find both Elliot and Son of a Saint in the digital sphere,
sure.
Lay it on them.
Okay. Do I go to this camera?
Yeah, you can go to that camera.
Okay.
You can go whatever. Yeah.
Okay, I'll just talk to you. I'll just talk to you. Should I go to camera?
Okay. Talk to me and then talk to that camera. Whatever you want.
Well, I mean, Son of a Saint, we have a diverse sort of platform when it comes to our digital voice. So everything from our website, strong email marketing, social media. Social media is sonofasaint.org, O-R-G, and Instagram is great. LinkedIn, Facebook, X. And then outside of that, our website is sonofasaint.org, O-R-G. As I mentioned, we made a critical investment in redesigning that just last November. It's got a lot of new bells and whistles. We listened to our partners and our mentors and our moms to understand how to optimize it really well. So we're really proud of it. Please feel free to explore that, but it lets you know how to get involved from time, talent, treasure, donating resources, volunteering, becoming a mentor, all the above. And then just look for Son of a Saint around. We try to be great community partners. We try to be really visible. So that's everything from festival partnerships to throwing our own events. We'd love to hear from you. So yeah, there's space for everybody at Son of a Saint. So come join us.
Putting that PR to work. I'll tell you what, that's the most prepared spiel I've gotten today.
Word of mouth is still the best marketing tool.
Word of mouth. You heard it here. You saw the mouth. You've got the word. Now we're here to wrap it up and say thank you so much for joining us on another fantastic episode of Make Marketing Make Sense. We'll see you on the next one. This has been Make Marketing Make Sense, brought to you by Comfystone. If you need video content for social media, your website, or email marketing, hit up Comfystone at comfystone.com and follow Comfystone on Instagram and TikTok. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.